Alright guys, Dominic here for Kit Guru, and we have reviewed plenty of products from Thermaltake over the years, from cases to coolers and peripherals. But we've never reviewed a Thermaltake monitor. Until now, that is, as we are checking out the TGM-I27FQ. This is actually Thermaltake's first ever monitor, and it's packing a 1440p IPS panel that runs at a native 165Hz refresh rate, and it is both FreeSync and G-Sync certified, and also offers a host of modern day features like RGB lighting, USB-C and KVM functionality. Hitting the market then at £320, today it's time to put this screen through its paces and find out whether or not it's worth buying. Kicking things off then with the design of the Thermaltake TGM-I27FQ, it is clearly aimed to be something more eye-catching and aggressive than something more minimalistic and understated. That starts with the angular appearance on the back of the screen and extends down to that large stand with its V-shaped foot. Now the stand does have a removable section for cable management, and the front is relatively conventional with a three-sided frameless design and a chin that measures approximately 20mm thick. There is also a built-in mini projector that fires the TT logo downward onto your desk, something I've never quite understood the appeal of, but at least it can be disabled within the OSD. We also get a look at the RGB lighting on the back of the screen, and again there's a few effects to choose from within the OSD. I do have to say that the overall aesthetic is definitely not my cup of tea. To me it's quite reminiscent of those ROG monitors that are all kind of big, bold and bombastic. I personally prefer something a lot more sleek and laid back, but of course this is subjective and you might think this looks fantastic. The one thing I would say is that this stand does feel particularly large for a 27-inch 1440p screen, as it actually measures in at 54cm across and 31cm front to back. Still, the included stand does offer a full array of ergonomic adjustments, and that includes up to 80mm of height adjust, which is admittedly a little on the low side. However, we do also find 30 degrees of swivel both left and right. There's tilt from 5 degrees downwards to 20 degrees upwards, and even full 90-degree pivot functionality. Third-party VESA 75x75 mounts are also supported. Moving on though, it is also good to see we do find a solid selection of ports and connectors. This starts with two HDMI 2.0, though do note these are limited to 144Hz. Then we find one DisplayPort 1.4 and one USB Type-C, the latter of which does support 15 watts of power delivery. Then we also find a 2-port USB hub that is fed by a USB-B upstream cable, and both the USB-C or USB-B ports can be used for KVM functionality. Lastly, the monitor is controlled using a small joystick found in the right-hand corner with a power button positioned just below. As for the OSD itself then, being the first Thermaltake monitor I have reviewed, I really wasn't sure what to expect. No doubt about it, it is very plain, being entirely text-based and looking somewhat dated, I have to say. Despite that though, it does actually feel reasonably well featured with options for sRGB emulation, 3 different overdrive modes, user adjustable color balance, on-screen crosshairs and so on. My main criticism is honestly that you can't actually adjust the position of the OSD itself. It comes up smack bang in the center of the screen and cannot be moved, which is less than ideal if you want to quickly make some changes on the fly without pausing your game or your workflow. So overall, it's not quite as polished as something from, say, MSI, but I have definitely seen worse first efforts. Leaving behind the design for now though, it's time to move on to talk about our panel analysis, where we are using Portrait Display's Calman Ultimate software alongside an X-Rite i1 Display Pro Plus colorimeter. Starting off then with brightness and contrast, the TGM-I27FQ is fairly typical of a mid-range IPS panel here, hitting up to 407 nits brightness at its maximum. Its minimum of 85 nits is definitely higher than I'd like, but I'd say it's passable overall. I was, however, slightly disappointed to see the contrast ratio hovering around the 1000 to 1 mark. Modern IPS panels have been capable of hitting over 1300 to 1 for a while now, even 1500 to 1 in the case of the ASRock PG27Q FT2A, which I reviewed recently, so for Thermaltake this does feel like a bit of a backward step. Gamut coverage is more as expected from this caliber of screen, however, generally exceeding the sRGB space and hitting 92.3% DCI-P3, 87.2% Adobe RGB, and then 74.7% reporting of the Rec 2020 color space. As for Greyscale, we are starting using completely stock settings, and that includes the warm colour balance mode. As you can see though, Greyscale delta E's are alarmingly high as the colour balance is considerably out of whack. The average CCT, or correlated colour temperature, of 6792K doesn't sound too bad considering we're aiming for 6500K, but as we can see, the red and the blue channels are raised significantly relative to the green channel, and that gives the screen a distinct pinkish purpley hue. To try and improve this, I next tried the standard colour balance setting from within the OSD, but this was even worse, being significantly cooler to the point where we saw an average CCT of 8000K, so I absolutely do not recommend this mode. Thankfully, there is user adjustable colour balance, and I dialed in the following settings: red channel at 46, green channel at 49, and blue channel at 50. That improved things hugely, with a new average delta E 2000 of just 0.97 for Greyscale and a near perfect average CCT of 6558K. It is definitely a good thing that this option is available, but it really is a shame that the default presets are so inaccurate, as most users won't have the necessary tools to accurately test any manual adjustments. Now, I've not actually mentioned gamma yet either, and things are also not quite ideal here. The TGM-I27FQ features two gamma settings. You've got gamma setting 1, which is the default, which is mostly accurate but does dip slightly towards the mid and upper end of the curve, averaging 2.119. Gamma 2 meanwhile starts off higher but then drops as the curve goes on, averaging 2.332. Moving on though, we're coming now to saturation, and we do see a fair amount of oversaturation here relative to the sRGB space, resulting in an average delta E 2000 of 4.86. Colour accuracy is also poor out of the box, and a large part of this is due to the default warm colour balance being so inaccurate, but overall we see an average delta E 2000 of 5.05. Now, Thermaltake does provide an sRGB emulation mode, but unfortunately it is not good. It does clamp the gamut down reasonably successfully, but it still uses the warm colour balance mode as its default, and users cannot manually adjust colour balance when using this sRGB mode. As a consequence, we only see minor improvements to saturation and colour accuracy, so it's definitely not a great option to have. Of course, I did run through a full manual calibration using Calman Ultimate software. This fixed up all of our issues near perfectly with incredibly good colour balance and gamma tracking. Saturation accuracy also improved to ridiculously good levels, as you can see here, as did our colour accuracy. The panel used here is clearly capable, it's just a shame that the factory calibration, in particular the default colour balance presets, are so lackluster. While we're here, viewing angles are also fine but nothing stellar, about what we'd expect from a mid-range IPS panel, while backlight bleed is also average with a few hotspots around the top edge, but really nothing terrible.
If you're looking for a new chair, then you should definitely check out Booley's. I'm currently sat on their Ninja Pro gaming chair, which is one of 3 models from their gaming series alongside the Elite and the Master. So if you're looking for something new to stick in your setup that you can sit on and game and work, then I recommend definitely checking out booleys.co.uk.
Next up then, we're coming to our response times, where we're using the open source response time tool as developed by Tech Team GB. The TGM-I27FQ has 3 different overdrive modes. You've got normal, you've got fast, and you've got fastest, and I'm going to be testing all of them at 165 Hz. Starting first then with the normal overdrive mode, results here are not too bad, with an average response time of 6.59 milliseconds and 0 overshoot. Only 40% of transitions are within that 6.06 millisecond refresh rate window required for 165 Hz however, but hopefully things will improve once overdrive is cranked up. Enabling the fast overdrive mode then really does quicken up those transitions with a new average of 3.71 milliseconds. Full times from the light shades to black, which is shown on the left hand column, are the slowest, but the overall speed here is really good. There is however a fair bit of overshoot now introduced, with 40% of transitions exceeding their target by more than 10 RGB values. Now that does sound bad on paper, but as we will see in a minute, in practice I really didn't find the overshoot to be that noticeable, and this is my preferred mode. The overshoot is hugely noticeable with the fastest mode however, and as always, I do not recommend using this mode as it just looks terrible. Speaking of the visuals then, here we can see the pursuit camera images using the BlurBusters UFO test. Normal overdrive looks okay, but clarity isn't great, with only 40% refresh rate compliance at 165Hz, as we noted earlier. The fast mode does look a lot better to my eye though, and I really can't say that the overshoot appeared particularly visible. There is maybe just a small amount visible, but I'd be happy to use this mode myself. As mentioned though, the fastest mode is just really not necessary in my opinion, with just ridiculous amounts of overshoot. Unfortunately though, the fast overdrive mode doesn't work so well at lower refresh rates. At 100Hz for instance, overshoot is increased significantly, as we saw 63% of transitions exceeding their targets by more than 10 RGB values, and there's an average error rate of 14.5 RGB values. Interestingly however, at 60Hz the behaviour does actually revert slightly, with response time slowing down but avoiding as much overshoot, with a new average error of 8.7 RGB values. So it does look like the TGM-I27FQ is trying to ease up on overshoot at lower refresh rates, but perhaps only past a certain threshold, as it didn't kick in at 100Hz as we just saw. The normal overdrive mode does work as expected at 160Hz, however. Response times aren't as fast, but they're fast enough to be comfortably inside the refresh rate windows with no visible overshoot either. We do also get a backlight strobing mode with the TGM-I27FQ named MPRT. With most modes like this, it does disable overdrive options and adaptive sync, and it also dims the display, hitting 242 nits, down from a maximum of 407 with this mode turned off. However, as you can see, motion clarity is improved with only a really small amount of signal crosstalk, so I really do think this could be a very viable option for those looking for the absolute best motion clarity. Putting all of these results into context then, using the fast overdrive mode at 165Hz, the average response time of 3.71 milliseconds is really good. If I ignore the top 8 results, which are all OLEDs, the TGM-I27FQ actually ranks as the second fastest LCD we have ever tested, so that is really good going. As for all of that means then for real world gaming, I had a really good time using the TGM-I27FQ. I'm very rusty, but I've been slowly trying to get back into Call of Duty, where I was more than happy to play with the MPRT mode enabled, but otherwise I'd stick to the fast overdrive setting. The relatively wide gamut means colours are nice and punchy too, so slower paced games also look good, though I would personally drop down to the normal overdrive setting for these, just to avoid excessive overshoot. There's more good news as well, that the TGM-I27FQ is officially G-Sync certified, and I had no issues using it with my RTX 4090. It is just worth saying, however, that there's no real HDR capabilities of the screen. It's only display HDR 400, so of course that means no local dimming, and in my opinion, it's just not worth using, but that is to be expected at this price point. Wrapping up this review then, as the TGM-I27FQ is the first Thermaltake monitor I have ever reviewed, I really wasn't sure what to expect from it. Safe to say it does have its ups and its downs, but overall I'd say it is a solid monitor for gaming. The factory calibration though, in particular the default colour balance, is definitely its weakest area. Out of the box there is a noticeable pink purplish hue using the warm colour balance setting, and while there is the option for user defined colour balance, most people won't be able to verify the accuracy of any manual adjustments. Because of that, using default settings, we saw relatively poor results for colour accuracy and saturation, and they would have been improved if the grayscale and colour balance were better. It's also subjective, but I do have to say the overall design language really doesn't float my boat. I personally would prefer something much more laid back and minimalistic in terms of its design, but of course this is all personal preference, so I can't really knock the monitor too hard, but let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. Thermaltake has done a good job at getting things shipshape for gaming, however, which I'd say is the most important area for a screen at this price point. The fast overdrive setting, for instance, produces great results at 165Hz, actually making it the second fastest LCD we have tested to date in terms of its grey to grey response times. It also sports an impressive backlight strobing mode, and latency is nice and low too. On top of that, we also find a good variety of features that some monitors might have ignored around this price point. The option for KVM functionality over both USB-C and USB-B is great, and we also appreciate the 2-port USB hub, relatively well-featured OSD system, and the OSD joystick. I'm not personally interested in RGB lighting on my gaming monitor either, but it is included if that is something that might appeal to you. So no, the Thermaltake TGM-I27FQ isn't perfect, but honestly, for a company's first effort in the monitor space, I think this is a very solid foundation to build from, and I'll be very interested to see what Thermaltake can do next in the monitor segment. So that is where I'm going to leave this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, do toss me a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do subscribe if you haven't already and ding that notification bell so you don't miss when we upload a new video. And if you want to chat with us further, you can head over to our Discord server, which is linked down in the description. While you're there, you'll also find links to pick up some cool merch like the t-shirts you can see on screen now. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you could even consider backing us on Patreon. That's it for this one though, guys. I'm Dominic for Kit Guru, and I'll see you in the next video.